computer. We're on chapter 3, section 5, called Beyond Perception. And this is a nice one. They're all, just FYI, each one is a nice one, so I'll probably say that for each section. Okay. So now we start off, I have said, and this is the voice of Christ. This is our highest self, speaking to our separate self. I have said that the abilities you possess are only shadows of your real strength, and that perception, which is inherently judgmental, was introduced only after the separation. No one has been sure of anything since. I have also made it clear that the resurrection was the means for the return to knowledge, which was accomplished by the union of my will with the Father's, with the Mother's, with Creator's. We can now establish a distinction that will clarify some of our subsequent statements. Since the separation, the words create and make have become confused. When you make something, you do so out of a specific sense of lack or need. Anything made for a specific purpose has no true generalizability. When you make something to fill a perceived lack, you are tacitly implying that you believe in the separation. This is a nice one. This difference between making and creating. And making things is rooted in this physical world. We make things out of other things. So we assemble, like a phone is something that we make, any sort of physical thing, a car, all of these things we make. We're not creating them, we make them. And this is just a convention that A Course in Miracles uses. It makes a distinction between these. We make anything when we feel that we have a need or a lack that must be filled. So we make a car because we have a need to get somewhere more quickly. In so doing, we're told, when we make something to fill a perceived lack, we are tacitly implying that we believe in separation. It's rooted in separation. And so it's a way of affirming, yes, separation, I choose this again. I choose separation again. Each time we make something, as unintuitive as it may seem, or as counterintuitive as it may seem.
You know, there's a phrase we have in English, in the English language also, we make a decision.
I like that.
Do you want to go to dinner or do you want to go for a hike? I don't know. Just make a decision.
I like that. I haven't thought of that one, but that is true. That is rooted in the small self making. You know, I'm making the decision. Another one is making complicated. We never create things complicated. We make complicated.
Oh, we make it complicated. Ah.
I'm not sure you got to that sentence yet, but I am having problems. You know, I'm not sure I understand that difference between making and creating, but creating and inventing, inventiveness and creativity. I'm also having a hard time.
Good. Let's read the next few sentences. So the ego has invented many ingenious thought systems for this purpose, for the purpose of making. None of them is creative. Inventiveness is wasted effort, even in its most ingenious form. So how about that for a statement? The highly specific nature of invention is not worthy of the abstract creativity of God's creations. So this is one that I said no when I first read it, because I had identified my first read through with A Course in Miracles very much so with inventiveness and ingenuity. I would say, yes, that I identify with those concepts. And right here, we're told that these are wasted effort, not worthy of the abstract creativity of God's creations. And so that's just one for just to sip and say, wow, I've never even thought of that way. To think of ingenuity as useless. Ingenuity is always presented as a beautiful thing. He's a genius. She's very inventive, and that's seen as typically presented as.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Is it's like, to me, they're interchangeable. I don't see the difference.
And yeah,
you know, we're just saying we're just gonna. Yeah, I don't get the distinction really.
So you don't get the distinction between creating and making, or between inventiveness and ingenuity?
Either, really.
So it's using ingenuity and inventiveness. We could think of those as interchangeable because it's putting them under the same umbrella of making something.
Okay.
Always rooted in the physical world, in the physical making things stuff, rooted in this substantial existence,
Okay.
where we need to use something and reform it to make something else. So that's not a true creation. And hello, Marian, I think is the right pronunciation. Hello. So we make something by taking things, you know, A Course in Miracles calls it just dust, you know. We take this reorganized dust and reshape the dust into some other sort of reorganized dust. So there's no creation in that process. We're just taking one form and making another form. Now, creation is something that maybe I believe is addressed slightly further in the reading, but it's something. Now, what we do know is it's true creation, actually creating something from seemingly nothing, bringing something into existence rather than reassembling something in a new form.
Okay, that's starting to make more sense to me now. Thank
Yes.
you.
So ingenuity then would be taking the dust and transforming it into something that others would declare ingenious or creative or striking. Not just another old hat, but a hat no one's ever seen before.
Right. But the bottom,
Still not yeah.
and the bottom line is it's still a hat.
Still a hat.
It's still just dust. You know, even our bodies is just reorganized dust. You know, it's like, and this is language that's used in A Course in Miracles because it's biblical language. You know, Adam was formed from the dust of the earth. So, you know, it's pointing us to that visual. Say that Adam is not the body of Adam, because the body of Adam is just dust. You know, there's nothing to the body. It's just dust reorganized in some way. But Adam, the creation, that is the creation. The spirit, the mind behind Adam, driving Adam, that is the creation. That is God's creation, not the body, not the dust behind it. That's the making.
So how then does a human create?
Let's read a bit further and see if we're told. Okay. So we're paragraph 3. Knowing, as we have already observed, does not lead to doing. The confusion between your real creation and what you have made of yourself is so profound that it has become literally impossible for you to know anything. So we don't have to read too much further to get at least a glimpse of the answer here. So first we're told that knowing does not lead to doing. Now, inventiveness, ingenuity, making are all rooted in doing something, taking an action, doing, very rooted in time and space, where there's a process that needs to happen through time, and you're doing it, very, rooted in this doing. Any doing is rooted in time and space. Without time and space, there's no doing. There's just being. There's just here. There's just now. So anything rooted in doing is this world of perception that we're discussing. Same thing as the physical world.
Hi,
Hello, Raul.
Raul.
Let me pop the link. This is what we're reading. We're discussing. What was that?
Hello, T.
Hello. I'm sorry I haven't responded
How are
to
you?
your... We are here. We are here now, fully. And perhaps I can discuss with you a bit after this how to fix our group situation. Sorry I haven't responded. Not yet, at least. But we are
Oh, it's okay. It's
good.
okay.
Good. So
When is the next one?
what's that?
When is the next one? When is the next one? Probably we'll have time to do that.
Oh, yeah. I'll send you a message after this group wraps up, and maybe we can figure something out.
It's okay, thing. I have been listening some of the conferences you have been posting on the Humanities Thing YouTube channel. So that's great. I have been listening about miracles, Course of Miracles, and that's great. Thank you, Ting.
Excellent. Thank you, Raul. So we're talking about the difference between making and creating, and it's a convention that A Course in Miracles uses. And we've gotten to paragraph 3 of the link that I just throw in the chat. So we're told knowing, as we have already observed, does not lead to doing. Knowing is not in the realm of physical, is not in the realm of perception. We're told that there's to not foster level confusion. There's the perceptory world, which is the physical world, body, time, space. The world of knowledge, there's no space, there's no size, there's just truth, just love, and it's one. There's no greater than, there's no less than, there's no order of difficulty. There's just knowing. And there's no doing in this world, because doing implies that there is a background of time and space to do the doing. So it does not lead to doing. The confusion between your real creation, what you have made of yourself, is so profound that it has become literally impossible for you to know anything. So here is where we're kind of at the throw our hands up point, Paula and Karen. So what is creation? And we're told that we have confused ourselves so much that we can't even know what our real creation is. But we do know that is rooted, at least in knowledge, rooted in something that is not bound by time and space, something that is eternal, aligned more with spirit, perhaps, mind. All of these things are more closely related to creation, or at least more conducive to creation than body. Bodies don't create. Bodies cannot create. Bodies just reorganize things. And bodies can be a way of communicating, which can be seen as a creation, but really that's driven by mind, by spirit. So body is not doing anything on its own. The driver of it, who we are, the spirit, the mind, however we choose to label it, is doing the creation or the making. It's a choice. Knowledge is always stable, and it is quite evident that you are not. We have to laugh at ourselves sometimes. Nevertheless, you are perfectly stable as God created you. So this is also this distinction. So we're told you are not stable, but we are perfectly stable. So who is the you in each case? You are not. So when we're told we are not stable, that's the part of us. That's if we choose to identify with body, with perception, with what we have made of ourself. And this is this self-image where we're a body, a name, a history, a circumstance, a societal role, and a photo on a web page. That and rooting that, if that's what we make of ourself. That has nothing to do with our identity or our true creation. So we, I think the one self, we oneself are perfectly stable as God created us. Identifying with that is perfect stability. There's no end. There's just extension. There's just shining, sharing. In this sense, when your behavior is unstable, you are disagreeing with God's idea of your creation. You can do this if you choose, but you would hardly want to do it if you were in your right mind. The fundamental question, and again, feel free to chime in if anybody has thoughts. The fundamental question you continually ask yourself cannot properly be directed to yourself at all. You keep asking what it is you are. This implies that the answer is not only one you know, but is also one that is up to you to supply. Yet you cannot perceive yourself correctly. You have no image to be perceived. The
Okay.
word... Go ahead.
All right.
Good.
So we talk a lot here lately about self-identifying, not with the small I, the body in this illusory world. We talk about identifying with the capital I, the truth, the way, the life. But when we do that, we are pretending or assuming that we know what we are. And I just read that I cannot perceive myself correctly. So how then can I re-identify?
Notice the words used here.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot perceive yourself correctly.
It's not in perception.
You have no image to be perceived.
Yeah, I didn't quite catch that.
In
You can know yourself correctly,
Yes.
but not perceive yourself correctly. And that
Exactly.
goes back to the last few sections, perception versus knowledge.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Perception always requires something to perceive and something which to perceive. There's a separation there.
And
So that's not
that,
identity.
yeah, that's right. Huh.
So that's what my son was doing when he was slapping the mirror.
Yes. Perhaps. He was...
Yeah, the poor guy didn't know he was a soul. He thought he was that baby in the mirror.
Exactly. He said, what he was saying is, I am far more than an image. On some level.
Exactly. That's exactly what he said, Tim.
And that's why he slapped it. He said, I don't believe it. I don't believe that is myself.
You're absolutely right.
You see that, Shabana? He was teaching us all the way back then.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, you're right.
So every time we look in a mirror, we see our self-image, and we think, oh, that's me. A course is saying, image is not a part of knowledge, and you cannot perceive yourself correctly. So it's kind of an easy constant reminder. If anybody has a mirror in their bathroom, it's like, oh, right, that's not who I really am. It's an image. An image is never who I really am.
Yes.
In one of Neil Donald Walsh's books, he says you're supposed to stare at the mirror and go, "Whoo," 3 times every day, 3 times a day, and at the end of a month, you'll have a revelation. It's written there. It's called Tomorrow's World.
Tomorrow's God. I was just reading that.
Yeah, Tomorrow's God. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
And one woman who actually did it, the rest of us didn't bother. But one woman who actually, she said it's magical. It works. It changes everything.
Huh.
So that's why I believe, by the way, the background behind you, I perceive it as really impressive.
This is my sacred space.
Yes, it's impressive dust, Tim.
And that's the bottom line. It's just dust,
Well, there's impressive dust and there's ordinary.
Yes, and dust is dust.
There's levels, there's higher dust and lower dust.
All the more reason to see through it.
Let me see if I can slap it.
I know we were saying this, at least I remember saying last week, is or sometime, I say it all the time, that there's these different, in illusion, perception, physical world, all these concepts of, not reality, of perception, all have different levels. So there's levels of perception, levels of awareness, or even consciousness, like we had experienced, I think, a couple weeks ago. Levels of consciousness. Anytime there's a level of something, the level is a way of almost showing us that it's not, that it's separated, because levels implies a separation. So
that person's a friend, but that person's a good friend.
Exactly.
Right? Level of friendship. That person's a friend. That person's a good friend. That person is a really good friend. Levels of friendship. Separation.
Exactly. Which tells us that that's not really friendship, or that friendship is not part of truth. Somehow we're making an order of difficulty among miracles, which is what we're warned, or we're told is not. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. That's the opening lines of the text. I think my internet, I'm not sure if my internet connection is bugging off, so apologies. Okay. So we can continue. Anyway, truth. So there's all these, illusion, there's all these levels, and, you need to know this before you know this. And then there's just truth, which is this here. It's just here, There's no level. It's just here. It's just something to be tapped into. No size. It's just here. And so I just think that's beautiful. So simple. So simple. We're often tried to. There's also often attempts to make reality seem difficult, and like we have to study and like work really hard. But it's the simplest thing that is. In reality, is just one. If we think of the truth of one, and oneness, and that sense of God, of everything. It is very simple. It's incredibly simple. There's love. It's just love. There's no levels of love. It's just love. It's just truth, which is a beautiful thing. It's just beauty. It's just beautiful. Okay. So, you have no image to be perceived. The word image is always perception related, and not a part of knowledge. Images are symbolic and stand for something else. So that's an interesting thought. Our image, the image we have of ourselves, stands for something else. What does it stand for?
Well, I mean, it stands for separation, but what are you really asking here? Stands for a lot. If I look in the mirror, that image stands for what we call female, for instance. Or it stands for someone of a certain age, or someone with a certain color eye. I mean, the image can be categorized in many ways.
But all of those things are worldly things, not spiritual.
Right.
Yes.
All of
Exactly.
those things of the image. Yeah.
Yes. So the symbols of them, all of the things listed, Karen, are symbols, are still parts of the symbol, are symbols for something else. Now, what is the something else?
So sorry, were you going to go ahead?
No, you go.
No, we don't hear from you. Let's fight about it.
I forgot now what I was thinking anyway.
Okay, well then I'll say something. I have two things to say, and I'll try to be brief. I'm Canadian, and we have a very big story here in the news about a foreign student from Bangladesh who was trying to do a master's degree, and she went back to her country and told her husband she wanted a divorce, and what he did was gouge her eyes out. So she became blind. And what she decided was, what do I care? I've got a life to live. And she got herself right back to the University of British Columbia and finished her master's and then became a lawyer. And she didn't want to be any old lawyer. She decided to be a trial lawyer. And the bottom line is, she said, I may have lost my sight, but I gained my vision. That I'm more than what the physical eyes behold, and what I see is different.
Beautiful.
It's very impressive. I heard this on the radio, and I'll tell the other story later. Or maybe I'll tell it now real quick. In my life, in my personal life, I'm Muslim, and there's a verse in the Quran which says, I mean, this is 1400 years ago, but the loosest translation is that you might have sight, physical sight, but the eye of your heart is the one that's blind. So that's the one to open. And I guess this woman did it.
Absolutely. That's such a powerful affirmation or confirmation of truth.
So would you say that we can have image born of thought rather than born of physical sight?
Image
Well, I was thinking that in this story you just told, Shabana, that woman no longer had physical sight. So I was about to say, so she eliminated image from her world. But then I was questioning that and wondering, can we have image just a thought without, regardless of physical sight? I think we can.
And how do you mean image, Karen? What do you mean by image?
Well, there's image of, I see an apple, I see a reflection in a mirror. There's that kind of image that is dependent upon physical sight. And then there's image of thought. I close my eyes, but it's all because I did once see something. So I close my eyes and I see an apple or I see a person's face, and I would call those images as well. But I'm wondering, if one never had physical sight, would we say there was image just of mind? I don't even know why I'm asking the question particularly.
Well,
how I get with words.
It's a very interesting question. Now, I can answer it in two ways. It's called alignment, where you're absolutely clear, like at the ego personality level, you're absolutely certain. There's a knowledge, there's a knowing of the soul's agenda. And this woman knew that, well, I'll just give the sort of the cheaper, funnier example, okay? I was talking to my son today. He's really fun, my kid, and he said, "Hey, Mom," he's a musician. "I was just minding my own business, and there's a tall shelf in our living room, and didn't a pile of music, 150-year-old, I don't know who it was, Bach or someone, fell on me, like literally hit him on the head." Okay? So he picked it up and decided that he would translate the composition for viola. That's his instrument. But it had to fall on him. Okay? And he's laughing about it and saying, "I did it all day, and it was fun. It was easy." Okay? Now, that is creativity, is that it was literally the music of the spheres that he was channeling. The example of this lady who was blinded, she said, "What the heck, I've got my sense of humor." And the way the music fell on my kid, she went back to UBC, University of British Columbia, and everyone and their dog came out to record their whatever it was that she had to, the legal books, whatever, like everything that she needed as a sightless person was put on CD for her. And the provincial government hired her. And she said that people think that walls are supposed to be a block to stop you from going any further. But for me, the block spurred my ambition and my faith that things would fall in place. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that I think that is creativity, not reassembling dust. Because not many people have that absolute, and she had humor, so that seems to be tapping into an upward evolutionary, unlike someone I know who was bitching about the hockey and things like that last week. I don't know who that would be.
So those were, as always, I enjoy your stories. I'm wondering, Tim, what you think about the last bit of that, that those are examples of creation rather than making.
So, creation, I would just say, is not like there's no direction. Like, creation isn't rooted in like becoming more of anything, as much of just extending. Like, we have, like, if we, love is not a commodity, you know, but and love to be held, but imagine that it were. It's kind of like, we have all this love, so somebody please come take some, you know, here, please, we have more love than we can need. I'm just going to give it away because this love is just here and we'll just give it away. And it's not to be increasing in love, it's just to be extending love. It's not like there's not a direction, there's not an agenda as much as just an extension, just a yearning to share. So I think Shabana, certainly that this individual is rooted in this sharing of joy or truth, whatever we call it, love, of being in that place of not letting a circumstance, you know, be a wall to stop, but just allowing it to be an opportunity to continue to share this this love. So it's not that the making, the degree, you know, the studying and all these things, that in themselves is not the creation, but the driving force behind them, the love that is shared because of this, all of that is the creation, at least closer to the creation. That is what's being extended.
There was
Creation.
no more of anything for like you know, for these people. There were volunteers who came and recorded her assignments, and they're volunteers. There's no money in anything for anyone.
Yes. And
yeah,
it's creation is rooted not in the action of recording these things, but the place of being from which they came. This complete willingness to help, to extend love. That's all helping is just extending love through these recordings, sure, but it's not the act. It's the state of being driving the act. That's a closer understanding of creation.
So there can be different states of being in making, because in the example of your son, Shabana, who transposed the music for viola, there's a making component to that. So now we have sheet music, or, you know, in his head, whatever. There's music now for the viola, but his state, his presence while making, that would be the love, the creation. But we can also make from other states. We can make from states of anger and frustration and revenge. And so I guess I'm just pointing out to myself that making in itself is, there's no judgment about making, but we can, in this world, we can make from a state, well, a state
calling
of creation
for
is
love.
exactly right. What's that?
And if coming in a state calling for love, perhaps.
In a state calling for love, something like that. And
that,
both of those stories you told, Shabana, were beautiful examples of that.
Well, thank you, Karen. I appreciate that, but I just want to tell you that what you said about anger, I mean, when Mahmoud was quite young, I don't know what it was that we played a CD of, but he started to see demonic spirits everywhere because this music, can't remember what it was, but it was powerfully evocative of dark things. And it scared me. And I phoned up my Sufi master and got someone that I wanted to beat up because of the idiotic answer I got. So we dealt with it. Thank you very much. I won't be calling you again, you know. But what I'm saying is that the creativity, I mean, he has tapped into better, which was what happened today when this sheet music fell on him. But we can tap into non-material forces. And that's my attempt in meditation. I've had tremendous information, which is of course knowledge, which wouldn't come from anywhere else.
Well, we're talking about making and creating, and we're talking about perception and knowledge and images. And so I'm having this feeling that demonic forces or angels on the other side are all images and part of this world of perception. It's quite a vast world, this world of perception. And most everything that we might identify as spirituality, and those sorts of things also are a part of this.
It's a vast.
Perceptual world.
Tim finds everything very, very funny.
It's a great way of putting it, Karen, because it is such a vast world, yet so small and tiny and insignificant.
One error.
Because there is a size. Exactly. Now, truth, it's just truth. There's no vastness to it. And let's see. I hope it's soon. We'll have to read a bit to get to the point that I'd like to address. So bear with us. Let's get back to it. Okay, paragraph 5, I believe. Knowing is not open to interpretation. And clearly, if anything pops up, just chime in. You may try to interpret meaning, but this is always open to error because it refers to the perception of meaning. Such incongruities are the results of attempts to regard yourself as separated and unseparated at the same time. It is impossible to make so fundamental a confusion without increasing your overall confusion still further. Your mind may have become very ingenious, but as always happens when method and content are separated, it is utilized in a futile attempt to escape from an inescapable impasse. Ingenuity is totally divorced from knowledge because knowledge does not require ingenuity. Ingenious thinking is not the truth that shall set you free, but you are free of the need to engage in it when you are willing to let it go. Now, how beautiful is this? We're in this society, this generation where ingenuity is so prized and put on this pedestal. And in a lot of ways, people who don't identify with ingenuity say, I just don't have this ingenuity, that person. If only I had the ingenuity that person had, then I don't know what, but then it would be great,
I could do great things.
Yes, exactly. But I'm not a genius, so I can't. There's no great things. There's one thing. It's truth, and we all are in it, and we all have the power to choose it or to not choose it. There's no ingenuity. We don't have to reason it. We don't have to develop a theory. We don't have to take any classes. Nothing. It's just given here for all of us. It's a beautiful thing. Okay, paragraph 6. Prayer is a way of asking for something. It is the medium of miracles. But the only meaningful prayer is for forgiveness, because those who have been forgiven have everything. And that's another beautiful thought. If we have forgiveness, we have everything. Once forgiveness has been accepted, prayer in the usual sense becomes utterly meaningless. The prayer for forgiveness is nothing more than a request that you may be able to recognize what you already have. In electing perception instead of knowledge, you placed yourself in a position where you could resemble your Father only by perceiving miraculously. You have lost the knowledge that you yourself are a miracle of God. Creation is your source and your only real function. The statement, God created man in his own image and likeness, needs reinterpretation. Image, and this goes back to our discussion, image can be understood as thought, and likeness as of a like quality. God did create spirit in his own thoughts, in her own thoughts, and of a like quality to God's own. There is nothing else. So we're guided a bit more, refining this wording, this dialogue to God created man in God's own thought of a like quality to God's own. So rather than being limited by image, which is a body characteristic, physical, and leads us to assume identity in physical, in history, thought at least puts us in the right direction where body is not identity. We are created in God's own thoughts, which puts us in the realm of thought, in the level of thought, at least, not body image. There is nothing else. Perception, on the other hand, is impossible without a belief in more and less. At every level, it involves selectivity. Perception is a continual process of accepting and rejecting, organizing and reorganizing, shifting and changing. Evaluation is an essential part of perception because judgments are necessary in order to select. And who's doing the judgment in perception is the imaginary self. The self who does not have access to all information, the self who is limited to a pinhole view of reality. And this is the imaginary self which makes the judgments in this perception-based world. And so we wonder why, when identifying with that, when coming from there, when using that for our judgments, that we end up in a state of discontentment because we're limiting ourselves to that pinhole. We're saying, I am the pinhole, rather than using the pinhole as a way of communicating from our identity, from our thought identity, our mind identity. What happens to perception?
So
Go ahead.
anytime we make an evaluation of any kind, I like it, I don't like it, I'm comfortable, I'm uncomfortable, we know we're in the pinhole. We know that our vantage point is the pinhole.
Yes.
And
yes.
you know, if we just stop and think, oh, I just judged that. Even when we're I keep pointing out, even when we're judging something as good or wonderful or better, it's still that pinhole view.
Now, this is important to, there's this physical world which is rooted, it's a net zero existence. So there's pleasure and pain, about zero. Happiness and sadness about zero. And so when we're in the pinhole, judging reality as if it operates under the same laws, where there's a net zero of this is happy in the sense that it's not sad, then it's inevitable that we're bouncing back and forth between these things. But that's not reality. Truth is just joy. The truth just is, or joy. Love just is. There's no opposite. The opposite, if we have to think about, there is no opposite, but the lack of love is the closest that you can get to an opposite, which is just a belief. It's not even true. We can elect to believe that there's lack of love. That doesn't make it true. There's just love, truth, joy. So when we're in the pinhole, we can say, this is love. And that's not judgmental. That's just a statement of facts. This is truth. This is joy. Not in the sense that this one isolated instance, this and nothing else is truth. No. This, everything, this is truth. This is joy. This is love. Everything. Not one part of it. All of it. All that we experience when we label it as from the eternal, then that's not judgmental. That's just saying the truth.
So we can say this is love from the eternal. And then we can say, and love conquers all. And then we're back in the pinhole.
Exactly.
Because if we're taking love and we're separating it from something that isn't, and love's going to conquer that, that's not an eternal viewpoint.
No.
It's a separated viewpoint.
Coming, one would never fully say, this is love, and then follow it with love conquers all, because the words can be used, but that would not be an understanding of what love is, because there's no need for conquering. When we say this is love, this is everything. There's nothing to conquer. There's nothing else. Love doesn't triumph. Love doesn't conquer. Love just is. And it just keeps reminding us, it's not forcing us to choose, but it's always in our face. Like, here's a beautiful flower. Here's love. You can choose it or not. Here it is. You don't have to choose it, but it's here. It's here. It doesn't conquer. It doesn't take over. It doesn't win. It doesn't any of this stuff, because there's nothing else. Winning, all this conquering, triumph, is giving power to lack of love. That's all it's doing. It's an illusion. It's an illusion, illusory form of love. It's in this net zero. Love conquers hate, but it's operating in nothingness.
Right.
And we can't say love is going to win, because win against what? Against hate? Oh, you just gave hate existence, so.
Right.
Okay, well, I just have one little question for you.
Sure.
This is decades ago when I was into memorizing Bible verses. And it's, I think, somewhere I remember, and the greatest of these is love. I think they were the fruits of the Holy Spirit or something. I don't know. I can't remember. But it did say the greatest of these is love. So I'm curious about that, because that's sort of levels. They're all great, but this one's the greatest.
It is interesting presented in that way. But I think the important thing to note is that it is the greatest. It's the greatest. There is no greater. There is no greater. There's things that may seem to be less than, but it is the greatest. It's not greater than. It's not this. Love is greater than all the rest. Then maybe there's something greater than love. Love is the greatest. Is the truth. Perhaps. But
All right.
I see exactly what you're saying, because even in this dialogue, when we introduce levels of existence, where the mind is another level, you know, and there's levels, but you know, any symbol, this level itself is a symbol, and so symbols are neutral, not inherently good or bad. It's this net zero. It's symbol. We can use it for good or bad, or just use symbol. And the symbol, using symbol for our benefit is to see through the symbols, to see through the levels.
Yeah, it explains it. See, the words Allahu Akbar is exactly the same thing. That Akbar means the greatest. So when you say that God is the greatest, it's much maligned everywhere, but it's saying exactly the same thing, that love is the greatest, that there is nothing more than unity, that it's all one, and as a part of it, we
Beautiful.
are also the greatest, because each one of us is the center of the universe, and that's not an egotistical statement.
Exactly.
That in terms of soul and truth, we are each one, and we're each the greatest, because there is only one.
Right.
So if love had a voice such as we do, I don't think love would. I'm. This is not an argument. This against anything you just said. That was so beautiful. This is sort of just a sideways thought. Love, I'm thinking, would not say love is greater than all the rest, because love doesn't see anything else. There is no all the rest. It doesn't even exist. Love is the greatest.
It's an umbrella. It's like it covers the whole shebang.
Yeah. And it's interesting, I really getting at, I wonder if greatest would even, I haven't thought about the word greatest, like I'm not sure how that fits.
It's just a symbol.
Yeah, it's just a symbol.
Well, yeah, there's great and then there's not great, right?
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
With most words, yeah.
What happens, we're at paragraph 8, what happens to perceptions if there are no judgments and nothing but perfect equality? Perception becomes impossible. Truth can only be known. All of it is equally true, and knowing any part of it is to know all of it. And this is, was saying something before, and I wanted to get to this point. All of it, all of truth, is equally true, and knowing any part of it is to know all of it. Only perception involves partial awareness. Knowledge transcends the laws governing perception, because partial knowledge is impossible. It is all one and has no separate parts. You who are really one with it need but know yourself, and your knowledge is complete. So this is, I love this. This is beautiful. You who are really one with it, with truth, need but know yourself, and your knowledge is complete. Know yourself, and your knowledge is complete. We're often told to, put ourselves in the other person's shoes, see through somebody else's eyes. And these are good tools. These are certainly good tools. It's a stepping stone. But that makes things very complicated. Do we have to see through every single person's eyes? And how can we? How can we do that if we're seeing through these eyes right now and each moment? Everyone we meet, do we have to do this and try and take ourselves out of this existence? No. We need but know ourself, and our knowledge is complete, because there is no difference in other eyes. There is no difference. We have a universally shared experience, and knowing our experience, any part of it, is to know all of it. Know any part of truth, and we know all of it. What is a part of truth? There is no parts. We are a part of truth. We are all of truth. Know ourself. In that state of knowing ourself, we know all of truth. All there is.
So putting yourself in the other person's shoes and that sort of thing, and if one could do it, then we would, well, no, we can't do it. And so, oh, sorry, you just said something so beautiful about knowledge. I'm gonna stop there and regroup.
While you're regrouping, I'm just going to make a true confession.
Go ahead.
Of course, there are false confessions, but today is true.
Go ahead, Shabana.
I was very grateful for the reading. I don't know how to describe it. It's absolutely true. What I received yesterday. So I sat down listening to that Ho'oponopono chant with Celeste Jacoboni, because the rest of them really annoy me. That one is repetitive, but very uplifting. And I put my hands on my heart and addressed all the areas where I was deliberately withdrawing love, like on purpose, and expressed the atonement. So this actually relates to what you're talking about. So as I got to know myself, things started to look better. And as you said, I mean, you know, as a Muslim, I was visualizing the eye of the heart opening, because it had a sty with
Oh, you're on mute, Tim. There you go.
Sorry, I'm back.
So I
hope you I hope you fixed the sty of your heart, Shabana.
Well, I didn't have to do any fixing, you know.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, then that means it's fixed. So
Well,
good to hear.
it did have a sty in it, but I mean, it's because of the discussion and me blaming folks, you know, like I started with the hockey man or whatever, like I had grievances, attack, you know. So by addressing it, all the eyes are feeling better.
Good. So Tim, you read, "You who are really one with it need but know yourself, and your knowledge is complete." And the thought was, there's never a completeness in perception. You know, it's an impossibility to walk in everybody's shoes and see through everybody's eyes. It just, that completeness never, it doesn't exist. It would never happen in this perceptual world. I mean, that it's just another way of seeing that there's a difference between perception and knowledge. Because in knowledge, there is that completion. You know yourself. You know yourself as what you really are. That's it. Full stop. Knowledge. It's just the one thing. Perception, that vast world, so many seemingly real things, never complete, and always fluctuating and back and forth and in and out.
Never certain.
Never certain.
And there's always more to perceive, more to add, you know.
More to understand, more to apply meaning to.
Yeah.
Or to judge.
But when it's love, I mean, I've only had cracked lenses, so everything looked like it was cracked. So now that they're clear, everything is looking radiantly beautiful.
Nice. It's because it is.
Of course. I mean, the real vision is coming. I mean, I saw it in my meditation about the guests at Amina's wedding, right?
Mhm.
I had a glimpse of it.
Ah.
But this is like the desire for seeing only what God sees. And I'm not sitting here arguing with love is the greatest, but I was curious about it. It really is the umbrella, and I am so out of the world of perception. Thank you, enough already. Oh, and today's my birthday.
It's your birthday?
It's your birthday. Happy birthday.
Yes. Thank you.
Happy
It wasn't
birthday to you.
Thank you.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy
Thank you so
birthday, dear Shabana.
Happy birthday to you.
Beautiful. I'm so touched. Like this is the best birthday present ever. You're singing. Jim, you're just so and Karen, oh God.
A Course in Miracles has that effect.
It does.
Yeah, kind of joyfully.
Yay.
Oh my God, that's gold coins. And you did it anyway.
Yeah. We gave you back those gold coins, Shabana.
Thank you.
Just for
Thank
today.
you. I'm very grateful. But it's really been fun. And, you know, when I was telling my son Mahmoud how happy I was that things were starting to look, what is it? Did I tell you guys that he used to go to a restaurant and there was one waitress who could bring everyone right down? Did I tell you about that? No. Okay. So he couldn't believe that this woman was so negative. It didn't matter who it was. She could definitely bring them down. So he went and bought her a pair of rose-colored glasses. And he said, Mom, I got jealous because she became more positive than I am.
Nice.
Like he gave it to her with, you know, just, I think the intention, the desire was for his love to infect her and she would see it, you know, see the world differently. But she surprised him by exceeding his own ability.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's how I feel, is that I've lost my glasses. I don't know where they are. I'll have to get my spare pair to dig them up. But but I do really see the world with rose-colored glasses instead of the cracked ones I had last week.
Well, it's lovely to hear, Shabana. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for singing.
Our pleasure.
Best birthday ever. Best birthday ever.
Yeah. You're a simple person then, Shabana. Simplicity. Just sing one song. That's all you need.
Well, it's the intention and the joy that is spread. And
of
that's,
course. That's the creation. Yeah. To know God's miracle is to know God. Forgiveness is the healing of the perception of separation. Correct perception of your brother is necessary because minds have chosen to see themselves as separate. Spirit knows God completely. That is its miraculous power. This is its miraculous power. The fact that each one has this power completely is a condition entirely alien to this world's thinking. The world believes that if anyone has everything, there is nothing left. That's a cool little thought, isn't it? That is absolutely the thought. We have this thought. If anyone has everything, then there's nothing for anybody else. It's this world of scarcity. If somebody owned, say, planet Earth, then nobody else would be able to get access to it. Fortunately, this world of creation does not operate according to the same principles of scarcity, same net zero as physical. So everybody, each of us, does have all of the worlds of love, of truth. And for us to know it is by giving it. So we do. It's just a different way of seeing what it means to have.
Because we are it.
Right. Yeah.
We are it. And then the extending of it, the giving of it, or the sharing of it, I mean, you don't really have it if you don't give it.
Exactly.
Which was probably said in chapter 1. Big revelation for me right this moment. Back to chapter 1.
Good. Beautiful. Think about it. And even if we limit it to ideas, an idea, again, idea is a symbol. Okay, let's use this. Let's use the symbol of idea. The idea of idea. If we have the most glorious idea, we think this, and then never act upon it, never tell anybody, never share it, it might as well have not existed, never come into existence. It has no existence. If we have a great idea, we share it with people, we start acting upon it, we act as if it's true, we tell people about it, all of a sudden, we're sharing this idea, it becomes stronger. And when other people share in this idea that we have, our own conviction in this idea becomes stronger. Somebody else, we have a great idea, we tell somebody else, they think it's a great idea. It's even better idea in our own perspective. So just thinking of ideas in terms of sharing, we can't have an idea and hold on to it. It's not an idea. Idea is meant to be shared. Love is meant to be shared. You can't clutch, keep it from everyone else.
So let's go from idea to love. So I am love, capital I. I am love.
Capital L.
Well, it's impossible to just stay with that because love is active. So I am love automatically loves. Like, and the extension isn't Oh, I think I'll extend it tomorrow, but maybe right now I won't extend it, but I'll extend it later. It's not like a decision to extend, is what I'm getting at. It just extends from love. It's inherent, it's active. There's no gap between love and sharing love or extending love. It's what it is.
And I like how you're framing it as an active thing, and that, I forget, last week somebody said the current moment, and I think that's such a great way of putting it. The current moment. We think of currents. I work with electronics, so a current is a flow of electricity, or current of water. Means it's flowing. So the current moment, it seems like a contradiction in terms. Moment is a supposed to be an isolated like frame of existence that's nothing's happening, but it's current, it's flowing. There is one current moment, and it's current, and it's a current, it's a flowing, it's an active, it's this extension. Just this extension, this breathing out, this shining of this love, this joy, this radiance. If we keep it within, we're just we're demonstrating to the world that we don't have anything here. Then we end up seeing that around us, because that's what the world, our brother is the mirror in which we see the image of ourselves. What is our brother? Anything that we see is our brother. The desk is my brother. I see this. Yeah. I see in the desk myself that is refusing to share love. When I share, look at that desk that's shining my love back upon me. Everything, every moment, everything, every part of existence, every person for that matter, is just a reflection of this love that we're extending, not directing it anywhere, but just everywhere. And only directing it here, and not in the sense of not there, here. We're directing this love here. All of us, all of myself, all of our myself. So in order to see that, we have to shine it, in order to see ourselves, even in using physical things. We need to shine. If we're in the nighttime, we want to see our image in the mirror. We have to shine a light to see ourselves, to see anything. So we have to shine a light.
We are the light.
Exactly.
Being is adequate.
What is adequate?
Just being, I think we're among the few beings in the world, in creation, as human beings, we are conscious that we're conscious. Inanimate objects are not necessarily conscious of their own consciousness. So anytime I can deliberately connect with my deepest identity, as I do in meditation, then I am more bright, more love than when I'm not deliberately connected.
I will say that in A Course in Miracles, there is this concept of either on or off. And when we're shining brilliance, we are shining full brilliance, and there's no levels of it. We cannot be totally committed sometimes. So we're either fully shining or not, and we can vacillate between these two, but that just means that we haven't made up our mind to be fully shining all the time. It's just another way of saying, you know, not on.
Well, for me, when I, like, you know, getting back to what we were talking about, when I have deliberately chosen not to love and then made the decision to atone for that, as it comes to mind, I say that, I address that, and then feel into it and get the sense that, yes, I mean, I think you have an American phrase which everyone loves, is Teflon. The stuff slides off.
I must also say, Shabana, that I cannot confirm or deny your theory that humans are more conscious than other things. But I don't know if it's in our best interest to limit our perception of the world to that. If we choose to see other walks of life or things that we wouldn't even label as life as not having life, we're putting a limit on this world that we're seeing, and we're making it inanimate, when really we can see perhaps the spirit in all of it, and everything can be alive, and we're kind of changing our definition of alive. And I know what it is that you're saying, and that we communicate in a very specific way. You know, we use words, and, you know, we make these technologies to allow us to communicate easier. But I do believe it's important to see that level of consciousness all around, just for our own experience, if nothing else, to make it more lively. You know, but when we, you know, I think of, you know, in the Industrial Revolution, when people are just putting price tags on things like trees and neighborhoods, and just seeing it as a dollar value, like, that's just a dead existence. There's nothing there. But when we see consciousness, or we have the willingness to see consciousness all around us, it leads us to appreciating each moment that much more fully. I mean, I think we all appreciate being with a fully conscious person, for instance. But, like, is there a difference between that and just being in a fully conscious room, you know, and reveling in that, and you know, maybe just the spirit that's in the room is another way to put it, or the spirit that's in the desks. But
I absolutely 100% agree with you.
Well, thank you, Shabana.
Well, it's sad that I can't argue it. Just sad.
I was waiting for a but there is no. Great. Okay. So at the end of paragraph 9, God's miracles are as total as God's thoughts, because they are God's thoughts. And really, that's us. We are God's miracles. We are God's thoughts. As long as perception lasts, prayer has a place. Since perception rests on lack, those who perceive have not totally accepted the atonement and given themselves over to truth. Perception is based on a separated state, so that anyone who perceives at all needs healing. Communion, not prayer, is the natural state of those who know. God and God's miracle are inseparable. How beautiful indeed are the thoughts of God who live in God's light. Do not perceive yourself in different lights. Know yourself in the one light where the miracle that is you is perfectly clear. Boy, if I could drop this microphone, I'd just drop it right there.
Well, you know, Tim, what you described before you read, what you described about the room and the desk, it's communion.
It is that, and yeah, exactly. Not seeing anything as separate. Communion. I like, you know.
And that is what it is now, here. Communion.
Exactly.
Fully.
And I'm so sorry I have to agree with that.
Yes.
Oh, I'm not sorry.
Yeah. We accept your apology, Shabana. Along these lines, like prayer for forgiveness, I just like to leave us with a thought, or a few, if we want to discuss a bit more fully. Anytime, forgiveness, we ask for forgiveness, and we only ask of it for ourselves, for our misperceptions of the past, say. And to really know what that means. So when we're asking for forgiveness, we are saying that we have judged somebody or something as wrong. Now, this is a direct communication from our one self. It is not wrong to have a judgment of something being wrong. That is not wrong. The important thing to keep in mind when we recognize our judgment of something being wrong, if we judge something as being wrong, is what is it that we're judging as wrong? What is it that we're perceiving could be better? Often it's with somebody else, another person, and we're perceiving that if only this person did this, or if only they saw it this way. There is nothing wrong with that, because that is really ourself telling ourselves that in some way in our own experience, we're doing that exact same thing. So when we're aligned with this and we have a judgmental thought, we don't bury it. Don't just try and discard it. We know where we're coming from. And this is coming up for a reason, for communication from our one self, telling us, keep this in mind, because there's an aspect within my own experience, and this is little self, that could use this perspective. Any judgment we have, it's inevitable that it's a part of our own life. So I know it's such a powerful and useful tool when we understand judgment and understand that there's no place of judgment, and yet we make some judgment, to keep in mind, keep that, don't discard it, don't try and rid ourselves of it. Look for the component within our own individual experience where that could serve us, because it is applicable somewhere, guaranteed. And it may seem to be opposite of who we are, but that's the point. We're showing ourselves that we are being in some way opposite of what we're wanting to be. Keeping the open mind where, okay, maybe I am doing this in one area of my life. Just keeping that little willingness, rather than projecting it outwards and keeping it there and saying, this person can't see it this way, but oh well, I'm just going to not think about it. Just keep it, okay. I'm making a judgment on this person for not being receptive on certain reading something. I know to look to be open in my own experience for where I am not being open to reading something. And then all of a sudden, when the opportunity comes, okay, I know what I was telling myself. Okay, I'll listen to myself. I'm not going to say that this is karma from being judgmental and this is what I get. No, this is my opportunity to listen to my own guidance, my own judgment.
That is so true. We always see ourselves first in others.
Absolutely. And you know, sometimes it may seem to be like, well, I'm not that way at all. But we are. You know? And just give the patience, give the willingness to see where it may be happening.
I was going to tell you, Tim, that after I listened to the recording of last week's discussion, I saw that what I had there was a bridge, a rainbow bridge, which I had to build from my shadow self, you know, that my children's father and this Coach's Corner man were identical to me, which is why I was bitching about them. And so instead of keeping that brick wall, I built a brick bridge, a rainbow bridge, like just redirecting the energy to be of use, of connection instead of division. And that cheered me up.
Nice. Good. Healing.
Yes, but it was very useful to project because that was the start of something helpful.
Yes. Because you didn't stop at the projection. You didn't stop and try and push it out. You eventually came to the realization that it came from within. That the projection started from somewhere.
And you know, when the Course in Miracles said that this is a required syllabus, just the time, you know.
Yeah, right.
Well, I certainly got to work.
Well, I one note on that is apparently when this was being scribed, Helen Schuckman, the scribe who had scribed this, she was just starting to take this dictation, and she's an academic, so she kind of playfully wrote down, like, you know, surely this is an elective, right? And the answer was, no, Helen, this is a required course. So it's a playful thing. And it's not, you know, some people take it to be like, everybody has to take this course. And this, but it's more of like a playful, you know, communication. So for you, Shabana, it is a required course. For all.
I'll say.
Yeah. Excellent. But
Like,
what's that?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was just being. I mean, I wasn't being melodramatic, but I should now. I mean, it's not the rose-colored glasses that I'm excited about. It's taking off the straitjacket.
Good. Good. It's always nice to wiggle around free.
Take that straight jacket and do a hug.
Okay, I'll put down the computer and do it. Thank you.
All right, so we are on to the last couple sections of chapter 3 in the next coming weeks. Judgment and the authority problem is next week. I guess we're going to talk about judgment and authority and whatever else comes up. So thank you, Raul, for joining us. I'm going to send you a message. Maybe we can meet through Zoom to sort out our grouping issue with conscious leadership.
Thank you very much, Ting. I listen to you. I am absorbing like a baby. Thank you for sharing all that information.
Thank you, Raul.
That's great. That's great.
Excellent.
Nice to have you here, Raul.
Yeah, I would like use a little bit here. Probably you can do it in a few minutes. This I read here is like God knows you only in peace, and this is your reality. Could you please talk a little bit about it?
Which line is that, Raul?
It's like God knows you only in peace, and this is your reality.
God knows you only.
Say
Okay. And that's
Only peace.
Say 15. Bright minds can do this now, and they will find rest unto their souls. 16. Say God knows you only in peace, and this is your reality. I am not really sure how understand this one. Please explain me a little bit what it means.
Sure.
God knows you only in peace.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is the last line of the section right before this.
Yes, exactly.
And so God knows you only in peace, and this is your reality. So God, and this is the way A Course in Miracles presents this. It's a very useful tool. It's not a claim on absolute reality and this is how it is and no way else. This is just a tool of thought. Again, Raul, but A Course in Miracles presents God as seeing us only in our perfection, only in our peace.
Yes.
We're in peace.
Right. Perfect. It's matched with my understanding. Thank you.
Great. Yes. So
yeah,
God,
so good.
Yeah, God doesn't see anything that we would label as problems. God doesn't see the physical world. God just sees us, which is the mind, the spirit, the soul, the perfection, the eternal self. That is us. That is peace. God knows us only in that peace, and that is only what God. This is our reality.
Yeah,
I think that's what you suspected.
I listened to something that it was talking about. We always see ourselves in others. That is the most difficult part for most of the people. They don't want to see their own mistakes or errors in others. They want to just. But it's okay. It's okay. I think we are by the end of the call. So, and the next one I will talk a lot, as you do.
Oh, good.
I'm feeling very good with you at the first time, but you are very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Raul. And I do hope that if you join us next week, that you feel free to come in and say, "Hold on, Tim, stop right there," and chime in.
No, it's okay. I just want to know if I was too late or what time came. I came on time or what?
Oh,
Where are you? Where are you?
I am
think
in
it was that time.
Central America. I am in Central Time, but it was 5:40, and probably for me was story. I don't know. I am not sure, but I am just saying if I was late or how late I was today.
I think.
I don't know it.
Yeah, I forget. To be honest.
I don't think it was like a half hour. I don't think it was a half hour. So we begin at 4 p.m. Pacific time.
And yeah, if I remember correctly, we were just beginning our readings. So So I don't think you were all that
Oh,
late.
right. Yeah, right.
10 minutes, maybe?
Not too much, right? Not too many minutes
No.
late.
No.
That thing.
No.
Right on
It's okay.
time. That's how we say it.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, keep me in mind, then give me my crop. So I want to discuss with them.
All right, sure. Thank you, Raul.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
thank you, Jane, for joining us again. And we're still going to make that that joint project. I forget who was working on with you on that. Was that Karen that was working with you on a what is the
I don't
Yeah.
think so.
No?
Maybe Paula.
Paula? Oh, Paula. Yeah, on some scrapbooking, right? Or is that
Oh,
maybe
right.
Shabana?
Well, I do scrapbooking, so maybe
Yeah.
it was me.
We can
I'm
scrapbook.
going now. Goodbye and
Go ahead.
thank you.
Thank you, Jane. And thank you, Shabana. Happy birthday, sister. We love you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I love you too. Bye-bye.
Bye, Karen. Thank you. Love you.
Bye.